those guys are awesome. They're doing a lot. They're pumping out a lot of content. Their show on Wednesday night is always great. Jeremy Brona's Drink and Draw show is really a Blurred Syndicate show with him doing drawing pictures while they talk a lot. But that's super cool too. It's a nice mix of different things. Really, really cool. If you haven't checked them out, you really should go do that. And also, can't forget our buddy Jay Thornton. Since we hadn't talked about these guys in a couple of weeks and I felt bad, I wanted to go ahead and do that at the beginning. Sorry, guys. That was unintentional on my part. So while we have done that now, we feel good about ourselves. We've made amends a little bit. And speaking of people who need to make amends, I would like to bring on my co-host, Alan.
I am sure that I need to make amends for something. I just don't know what it is. So therefore, there will be no blanket apology tonight until someone can tell me what to apologize for. If I'm apologizing for having a blast the past couple of days in St. Louis with the family going to Cardinals games, then I'll apologize for that. Eating way too much, ballpark nachos, oh my God. That was worth the trip alone.
The ballpark nachos were worth the trip to St. Louis?
Oh, God, yes. So what they'll do is you'll get a box that's about like this big and about that deep, and you've got your choice, either ground beef or pulled pork, and then whatever toppings you want, cheese, pulled pork, ground beef, jalapenos, sour cream. I mean, you'll sit there and you'll eat till you make yourself sick, and it's absolutely glorious.
I mean, that does sound fun. I'm not going to lie.
And then the Cardinals won, so that was a bonus.
That does sound like a bonus. How's their year going so far?
They are about 10 games above 500 right now, second place in the division. Got rained out last night, and we could not stay for the other game today just because we had so much going on back here at the house with other commitments that we had. So after tonight, if they win tonight and the Brewers lose, they could be in a tie for first place in their division, which would be absolutely awesome.
That'll make my dad happy. He's a St. Louis fan.
Oh, yeah. Hey, I like your dad already.
You might want to withhold judgment until you actually get to know him. Oh, man. So far, the only person who's chiming in on the chat is Tots, who says, hey, you guys, which I greatly appreciate.
I noticed just a second ago that we were not live on YouTube. So when I looked at the edit, YouTube and Twitch was not selected, so I went ahead and added those streams right quick. So hopefully we'll have a couple more chiming in soon. Yes, Tots, I was all over the hill. We had lunch at Fritz's. It's like barbecue / root beer. They have their own root beer brewery. Absolutely love that place. I don't know what it is. Every time I go to a restaurant, if they have fish and chips on the menu, I am all over the fish and chips in a heartbeat. And it was awesome. They got some of the best root beer there is because you actually get it fresh, pretty much right out of the tap. So, yeah, we was all over the hill, walking up and down Deadmaul. We had a good time. Even though it was 110 degrees yesterday.
What's happening, Nate? Glad you were able to join us. I just... when you swallow, it's supposed to go down your esophagus, not into your lungs. I just went the wrong way. So if I keel over, you guys will know that's why. If we're going to sit here and talk about food, I feel like we need to bring on our guest for tonight. You guys, I got to tell y'all, this dude is awesome. He is a professional comics letterer. So everything you read in the comics, him or a guy like him does that, except for the really crappy comics that use a computer and think that a font is going to be as good. Every one of us knows you look at a comic, and if a computer did the lettering, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Why doesn't that work, Justin Birch? You're muted. There you
go. First off, the Pirates won, so the Brewers lost.
Yes, Brewers lost earlier today, so we're good there. They lost in extra innings. I got to listen to a little bit on the car ride home.
I wanted to get the important stuff out of the way first.
That's fair. That's fair. What's happening, Ryan? Good to see you, brother.
So I feel like I'm gonna sort of rain on your parade a little bit. I letter digitally.
What?
Yeah. So
what does that mean?
What that means is that I'm using a font and doing it on a computer instead of, old school with an Ames guide and pen and ink.
What is an Ames guide? Because none of us knows.
Oh, sorry. So an Ames guide is this little tiny, piece of plastic about this big. It's think of it as a ruler, and then there's a circle in the middle. And what you would do is you would use it to line up your sort of line widths, so that you would be able to draw in the pencil lines, and then make sure that all of the letters are the same consistency.
That sounds like a nightmare.
70s and 80s, yeah.
That sounds awful.
I'm grateful. Like, I have one somewhere around here. I, for the life of me, cannot figure out how to use it. I'm very happy that it's 2022 and I don't do it manually.
Uh-oh.
So did you ever have to do it manually, or was that kind of a thing of the past when you started? Or was it being phased out?
I started in, when did I start lettering? I started in 2015. So I never had to do, I've never done it manually. I don't really have any sort of interest in doing it manually. It seems like it's really time consuming.
It does. So you say you do it digitally. I mean, you're not just typing like in a text box, are you?
No, it's way worse than that. I have the script on a screen in front of me, and then on my other screen is like the page. I will just copy and paste from the script, put it on the page, and then sort of shape everything the way that I think it fits best.
When you say shape everything, what do you mean? You actually shape the word balloons?
Yeah. So not only
I thought they were drawn in and then you just wrote inside them. I didn't realize you did the whole business there.
No. So so I'm going to say, when I say that I do things this way, like how do I want to phrase this? There are other ways to do it, but when I talk about the way I do it, the way I do it is generally accepted amongst like 95% of letterers. So I'm putting that disclaimer out there first. There are other ways to do it, but I'm not talking about that. I'm just going to talk about the way I do it.
Sure.
So I get the page of art, and then I'll get the script, and then I'll take the words, the dialogue, or the sound effects, or whatever the script says needs to be on that page. I'll take it out of the script, I'll put it on the page, and then I will shape the text box or the dialogue box so that it looks well, and then I will draw the balloon around it.
So if ever the dialogue box, the word balloon is pointing to the wrong person, which happens occasionally, that's not actually John Byrne's fault or Todd McFarlane's fault. That's the letterer's fault.
Honestly, it probably just depends on, like, if it's a modern book, circa 2000 and up, definitely the letterer's fault.
Interesting.
Unless now there have been times where I've submitted a page and I've lettered it one way and somehow the art got changed after the lettering. So that's a situation where that has happened before. So I'd say 99% of the time it could potentially be the letterer's fault. Maybe art was changed after and they just didn't update the letters.
Blue Hellion, what's happening, man? And we have an important question from Nate Saint. Thought Bubbles, what happened?
I don't know. I personally like caption boxes better for inner monologue stuff, just because that's fair.
This dialogue is terrible. It must be the person who lettered it.
Hey, so speaking of which, here's a good question. Now, this is just one of my random stupid questions. You get the script in, and you're going through everything, and you're lettering, and you're getting it all. Have you ever finished a book then went back through and reread it the way, like, say, us common folks would read it, then be like, oh my God, this book it sucks. It's awful. This story is god awful.
I read it as I go. So I as I'm going through it, I'm reading it. So very rarely will I go back and reread a book that I've lettered, because I feel like I've already read it once.
Okay,
and
so
once is your limit.
So next time a god awful book comes out that I'm looking forward to, will you just like slide me a message and say, "Hey man, don't bother with this"?
I mean, if I've worked on it, sure.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm gonna guess that you don't get a whole lot of time for this part of the job. I'm guessing you work under a pretty heavy time constraint mostly. Is that accurate?
I like to make the joke that letterers are the only people in the industry that have deadlines.
That seems right.
Because like, so think of it this way: if the artist is late, and if the artist is late, where do editors make up the time to get the book back on schedule? Well, usually that comes down at the end of the production, which is, us. So whereas the artist might have had a month to do the book and need longer, I might get stuff and say, I need it tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
I've had 24-hour turnaround, 24-hour deadlines before.
Do you get paid a premium for I need it tomorrow?
I should start charging a premium for that.
You really should.
I should.
Because that's outrageous. I mean, they wouldn't do that to somebody else.
No, but again, artists are more important than letterers.
I don't know. I mean, to an extent, I agree. But you look at a comic, and the way that the story is told isn't just the art; it's the way that the text is put in there. And knowing that you're actually the one making those arrangements and moving stuff around, that's actually really helpful to me, because I didn't know. So I would guess then at that point you work with artists who don't understand that other things have to go in those panels.
Yes.
And they just cram them full of stuff, versus ones who are like, I don't know, Rob Liefeld. Like, I drew a person. What is a background? I don't need that. Here, all the room you want for a text box would be my guess. Is that accurate? Do you have those two types of experiences?
Yes. And whenever you get a panel that is just, you can tell that the artist has devoted a majority of their day to just this one specific panel, and you look at it and you're like, my God, that's beautiful. And then like 1 second later, you're like, sorry, I got to cover it.
That would have to hurt.
I've got something I'm going to try to put up on the screen and not cover all our faces, just so.
Well, before you do that, let's check this. Nate's got a good question. Do you actually do edits and check grammar and stuff?
So I usually leave that up to the editor. But if I notice it while I'm lettering it, I will fix it. Because if I don't fix it when I notice it, I'm just going to have to fix it later when revisions come in.
That's true.
So if I notice it, I fix it. I don't always notice it.
I think I showed this off last week. But I finally got frames. They just haven't put these into frames yet. But these are old pages from the 90s. I'm going to embiggen myself here for a second. Boom, embiggen. So here's a Ghost Rider page with Ghost Rider and Spider-Man. Original Javier Salteris page. I'm assuming that there's dialogue on this page in the printed document or in the printed comic. Like, maybe not every panel, but there's not a lot of room for dialogue here.
What issue is that? Or is that Spider-Man 93?
Yes, it's Peter Parker Spectacular Spider-Man number 93.
All right, give me 1 second.
Oh, he can look it up. Okay. While you're looking that up, here's another one. And this one has got word balloons actually cut and put on here. And in one case, it's actually got a little bit of artwork drawn over the word balloon, which is interesting because I can see it because the word balloons have been on here since 1997. and it's wanting to peel up a little bit. But these are actually just cut and pasted word balloons.
Mm-hmm.
And this one right, where is it? Here has actually got a little bit of the explosion coming down into the word balloon because the circle is cut out bigger than the black lines. But yeah, that's all cut and pasted. And this texture, by the way, here, whatever this film is, the back to make that background, that's pasted on here as well. That's not an actual pen and ink or coloring thing. That's some kind of a material that is pasted on. And I know that because it's starting to. But yeah, that's also Javier Soltera's page from a Wonder Woman annual, or not Wonder Woman, Catwoman annual in 1997.
What was
so both
the?
Of these.
You said it was Peter Parker Spectacular Spider-Man
93.
93.
Page 16.
It's only going to take a while if he has to go through the boxes with the toys in them, Bearded. Or if he has to go through the X-Men box.
Actually, I cleaned at least the camera area so that it looks presentable. Bearded was just here like a week ago, and he saw the mess that was the basement. So
he got to look behind the curtain, huh?
Yes. Okay, so you said Peter Parker Spectacular Spider-Man number 93.
Yep.
I don't think this is the right one. It's not Black Suit Spider-Man, right?
No.
I am looking at the wrong series then.
I bet Liefeld pre-draws panels over feet. That's probably true. I want to say you worked on a Liefeld book. Do I remember that correctly?
I did. I worked on
the Snake Eyes book, right?
Yeah, Snake Eyes Dead Game.
Yeah. So you can answer this question. Does he put panels over feet? I'm guessing not. I'm guessing he just leaves no background. It's just all characters with a few anime lines.
It is everything you would think that it would be.
Fair enough.
All right. I tried to find the issue, but I could not. So.
Okay, I'm trying to figure out how to do this to where this does not cover our faces up.
Yeah, I don't know how to do that either.
Yeah, it's just not working for me. There you go. So I literally Googled Justin Birch.
Uh-huh.
And this popped up that says the letter of the day, Justin Birch. So this was like one of the things that popped up.
Mm-hmm.
So here's my thing, and here's my question. Whether or not this is actually a page that you've done, I guess really and truly doesn't matter at this point. But when you get the pages in, does it look just like this except without the word bubbles and without the words, or what do you actually see when it comes to you? And I'll take it off the screen so we can see you now.
Give me 1 second, and I will show you that exact page how I got it.
So you did do that page. Aha.
I did do that page.
Say somebody's pushing buttons. That's not me.
Well, I was trying to take it off of what I actually put it on. I have no idea what I'm doing, so I'm just going to stop now. I wanted to show something that Justin's actually done, if that was one of his, and then kind of ask what the process was like from there.
Oh, that book was Dryfoot. Got it.
All right, give me if I can do this.
The first picture that popped up when I Googled Justin Birch letterer was a picture with him out the beard.
Oh, I thought you were going to say it was a picture from an adult film.
No, but let me tell you what. I mean, the way he's looking without that beard, he's got a future in it.
I tell you, I can't deal with him without the beard. I'm like, who is this person? He has the beard, and that works. I get that. That syncs up with what's in my head. But yeah, Justin without the beard, I can't do. Justin, have you Googled yourself? Bearded wants to know.
Have I Googled myself? I think I have, but that's because I'm vain.
You're so vain, you probably think this Google result is about you? Is that?
Yes, 100%.
It's my name! Of course it's about me!
All right. So, gonna share my window or my screen.
Awesome. Oh, here we go. All right.
So that is how I got it. That's how I got it.
Well, okay, never mind then. Just show me up on the show that I co-host. Just go right ahead, Justin.
Well, yeah, I've got all the original art, right? So I've got all this stuff at my fingertips.
So you don't have to turn that back in or anything. You just keep it like stored in an archive that's bazillions of terabytes, humongous.
Yes. Yeah, every book that I've ever worked on, I've got a copy of the work that I've done.
One day when one of those books goes to a reprint and they have a huge system crash and they're like, "Oh my God, we've lost it forever," you're going to be the savior.
Okay, so when that come in like that, it's totally up to you as to where the word bubbles go and all that, or do they send you anything and say, "Hey, this is what we're thinking," or is it just kind of go for it, Justin, do your thing?
Honestly, it depends on the publisher. Some publishers will send what they call placement guides. So the editor will sort of take the art and sort of draw in where they think the balloons and the sound effects should go. I don't. I have letterer friends who never even open that document, and they're just like, "What? I know what I'm doing. I've done this long enough." And they, and I have other friends who will sort of maybe not follow it religiously, but will lean on it for suggestions.
Fair enough.
Okay.
I like a placement guide when the art is a little bit confusing. Like if it's a scene that takes place in shadows, and I have a hard time like telling, because a lot of times I'm only working on the inks. I don't get the colors. So if it's like a shadow scene, it's hard for me to tell like which character is which. So a placement guide would help me tell who's supposed to be speaking first, and then I can sort of figure it out from there. Do I ever leave stuff out? Never intentionally. I will put in there on that page how it is written in the script, and then my hope is that the editor will see that it's sort of a problem and sort of come back and cut it down in the revision stage.
Yeah, I don't want you to be too worried here, Nick, but we stole him. He's ours now.
Yep.
Justin is ours.
Even if it's just for one night, we got him one night that you didn't.
Justin Birch, the hottest commodity in podcasting or whatever the heck this is, video streaming. Did you ever think that would be the case, that one day you'd wake up and people would be fighting over getting to spend time with you online?
No, I thought it'd be the opposite. People would be fighting over who would have to take me.
He's yours. Take him.
Yes.
Now, okay, Tom. He's a comic book artist. He's going to pop in. Placement guides are amazing, especially if the artist letterer knows exactly where it should go, so the reader can be directed.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. So, Tom, you have as a professional letterer to an artist, do you have any industry insight that you could pass on to Tom to say, here, when you're doing a page, don't do this or definitely do that?
I wish I could. I really don't want to tell an artist how to do their job, because I don't draw. Like I'm going to stay in my lane is what I'm trying to say.
Right, but they have to leave room for your lane, right?
Yes, it would be nice if they did. If they don't, then their art doesn't get to be seen.
How do you feel about this?
I mean, I wish that I was getting his paychecks.
True that. For being a total dork.
Yeah.
He gets paid so much money for just being a dork.
Well, I mean, I mean, that's how I make my money now. But
I think he's more of a lazy dork. You're working hard for your dork paycheck.
I'll take that.
So speaking of working hard,
I bet he never had a 24-hour deadline.
So, for speaking about working hard for your dork paycheck, how does someone break into the comic book industry as a letterer?
That's a great question.
You
I'll
know
tell
a
you how
guy.
I did it, and then I think there are other ways to do it besides the way I did it. So what I did was I went to college for graphic design, so my bachelor's degree is in graphic design. So I already had that basic foundation of how to make like stuff work. So I wasn't doing anything with that graphic design degree. I was actually working like a 9 to 5 office job at a bank, and it basically tech support, and it was not fun. Like I did that for 9 years. So I wasn't using that graphic design degree. So I basically decided that I wanted to make comics, but I wasn't sure which part of the process I wanted to do. So like I looked at every part of making a comic, from the writing all the way down to the editing, and I knew that I didn't want to be a writer because I am just not that creative enough to make stories that I think people would want to read. I'm not an artist. I did not want to be a penciler. Uh, I um, I thought coloring would be interesting. I thought coloring and inking would be interesting. But then when I got to lettering, that's when I was like, wait a minute, that's basically graphic design. Um, that's basically graphic design. And that's what my degree is. My favorite classes in college were the typography classes. So it seemed like a perfect fit. So I immediately Googled how to become a comic book letterer. One of the first things that came up was the Comics Experience website, which is
Yeah.
basically like an online course that will teach you every aspect of making a comic. So I signed up for that, for the lettering class. I took the lettering class. And the great thing about that lettering class was it gave you the basics, and it gave you I think, like 12 pages that you could use as a portfolio. So I took those 12 pages, and like a week after my last class, I went to my first convention, and I just walked around with those 12 pages, and I just talked to every single person in Artist Alley.
Which
And
con did you go to?
it's called Tricon. It was in Huntington, West Virginia. It's like a 3.5 hour drive from where I live.
Okay.
So I went there. I talked to every single person that I could, and then I handed out as many business cards as I could. I I got back in the car, drove home, and that was weekend number one. And then I did it the weekend after at another convention, and then another weekend after, and another weekend after. Like I just kept going to conventions and talking to as many people and publishers as I could at those conventions to get my name out there. And then also what I would do is, at the time, there were great online forums for people who wanted to break into comics. I responded to an ad on digital webbing, which I think might still be a thing, but it's definitely not as popular as it used to be. So I went to digital webbing. Someone was advertising that they were looking for a letterer. I applied and I got the job. So my first published work is actually a G.I. Joe fan comic. It's not good. I don't recommend.
Wait. What? What was it called?
Cobra the Enemy.
Cobra the Enemy fighting to stay. Yeah, okay.
So it was.
I need a copy of this.
I'll send you the links later. I'll send you the links. It's not good, but I took the job because I knew that it would teach me something, and it would give me the experience. So I learned to work within deadlines, and every issue that they gave me, I would work on something different.
Wait, there was more than one issue of this?
Yeah. I think it's still going now.
How have I never heard of this?
Yeah, I'll gladly send you the links.
Oh, I feel like I'm losing out on a part of my life that I should have had this whole time.
So basically, I hustled. I went to like maybe 10 to 15 conventions a year, just trying to talk to as many people as I could. I replied to every single ad on Facebook, on those online forums, on Reddit for people looking for letterers. I also knew that is coming out of that class that I wasn't ready for for the big publishers, I knew that I had to start at the bottom and work my way up.
Very nice.
So that's how I get it. Others do it just by watching YouTube videos on how to letter, and there are a few books out there that'll teach you how to letter, and sort of just trial by error. They just did it until they just taught themselves how to do it, more or less.
So would this be with Rising
You're not
Sun
wrong.
Comics?
You're not wrong, Nate. That's because I'm a real fan. Even if it's terrible. For example, let me see. Where is this?
So this Cobra the Enemy, is that with Rising Sun Comics?
Yep, that's it.
I found the link. We got it right here.
G.I. Joe First Strike. That's some new stuff that I'm pretty sure is going to be terrible. It's a crossover event with G.I. Joe, and you recognize the car from Mask.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that was, but now I have it. It was put out by IDW. I'm sure it's terrible, but now I have it.
Well, now you have hours upon hours of free G.I. Joe fan comics at your fingertips.
Oh, that's spectacular. That does make me happy. If we jump up, Nate had another question for you up here. Do you have a particular comic or artist or writer that you just find that you click with what they do?
So, like from a fan standpoint, my favorite artist is Jim Lee.
Fair enough.
And probably my favorite writer would be I'm going to say Ed Brubaker.
Fair enough.
And that's just from a fan standpoint. From the professional standpoint, I'm going to be a complete homer and say that my favorite writer is Rich Doig and artist is Alex Cormack because they keep hiring me to do stuff.
That's true. That's a sign of good taste. That's a sign of good taste. So tell folks what some of the books are that you have worked on so that when we get to see you at a con or whatever, that they can get you to sign them.
So provided that I actually stay at the con and don't go home and take a nap.
He doesn't sign comics at cons. He's a prima donna.
No, I just need to take a nap. So some of the bigger books that I've worked on, currently I'm lettering House of Slaughter. I've lettered Regarding the Matter of Oswald's Body, also from Boom. Some of the IDW stuff is Snake Eyes Dead Game, Kanto, Sea of Sorrows, Road of Bones.
Boy, Sea of Sorrows was good.
I'm going to give you guys a little secret. Sea of Sorrows, do you want to know how that premise came about?
Yes, I love insider stories.
All right. So basically, I think it was at a New York Comic-Con. The writer, Rich Doig, went up to the artist, Alex Cormack, and said, "What do you want to draw?" And Alex said, "Underwater stuff." And that's all it took.
Well, he's not wrong. Underwater stuff is a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. I've done a ton of Mad Cave stuff, too. So there's a good chance that if you pick up a Mad Cave book, I've lettered it.
Have you done Nottingham?
I've done the second volume of Nottingham is me, yes.
The one that's going on now?
Yes, that is me.
Okay.
That's one of the few books that we get where, as it has gone on longer, we have gotten more subscribers. Because a lot of times you get people who jump on at the beginning, and if they didn't catch the beginning, then they're out. And that book, people are like continuing to sub to. They're like, "Hey, wait, that looks cool. I want to get that," and so they continue to sign up for it.
And that last issue had a shock ending.
What's that?
The last issue had a shock ending that I did not see coming, and I was just kind of like, "Oh, wait a minute." This one last thing. Well, I mean, if anybody hadn't read it, I don't want to give it away, but
he's just saying the issue number.
I don't know the issue number. I don't keep up with issue numbers. What is it, 5? They get to King Richard. How about that? Does that help any? Josh, have you read it?
Oh, wait. Not yet.
Oh, the last panel, I was like, oh, wait a minute, what's gonna happen here?
I thought I had my box of comps laying around, but I don't. I was just gonna pull it out and like look at it real super quick.
Okay, hang on. Let me go to.
Kanto is really good, Nate.
Kanto is really good. I liked it as a fan before I started working on it, and those are my favorite type of books to work on, where you're a fan who eventually gets to letter it.
Yeah, I have to thank Nick Ellis for turning me on to that book at all. And now it's I sell a lot of it. Kids come in with their parents or whatever, and they're like, "What's a good book that my kid can read?" She likes fantasy stuff, and I'm like, "Here, Kanto." And invariably, they're like, "Yeah, sign me up. I need more of that." This one girl came in. She's 12 now. I think she was 11 at the time, but she's a big reader, and she wanted to read something, and she liked the fantasy stuff. And I showed her the cover of Kanto, and she kind of looked at it like, "What is that? What is this little round kettle person?" I don't know how I feel about that. And I said, just give it a try. I tell you what, you take the first issue for free. I totally pulled the drug deal thing, right? The first one's free. She came back in the next week and was like, I need all of it.
So that would have been Nottingham 9.
Okay, I think I remember how it ends. Keep in mind, I worked on it months ago, so it runs together for me.
So when you get a book and you work on it and you complete the book, it gets sent back to the publisher or whoever it goes to next in the process. They sign
editor, I would guess, right?
How long does it generally take from the last phase of the comic book being done up until it actually gets released?
I think it depends on the publisher. In my experience, the bigger publishers are usually a month ahead. So I'll use House of Slaughter as an example. House of Slaughter just came out last week, right?
I believe so.
So House of Slaughter just came out last week. That was issue number 7, correct?
That sounds right.
I just turned 8 in last week, earlier this week. So it's usually like 3 or 4 weeks before.
They set the print run at final order cutoff, and final order cutoff traditionally is supposed to be a 3-week turn.
Okay.
So we would turn in our orders for final order cutoff, and they would determine at that point, here's how many we're going to print. And so you would have to be done before that. So you're at least 4 weeks ahead, I would guess.
Yeah, it's usually 4 weeks. Some of the smaller publishers who probably don't have as large of print runs and probably need that time, it's usually, I would say, maybe 2 to 3 months ahead of time.
So Nate's got a pretty good question. Does seeing behind the scenes or just working on books in general take away some of that excitement as a fan?
No, I actually get more excited when it's a cool book or property that I get to work on. Like if I get to play in that world a little bit, it's also a really cool feeling. I don't get it as much now as I did before, but it still happens. Where you walk into a comic shop and you see your name on a book that's on the shelf. It's even cooler when you can walk in with your father-in-law and say, yeah, that like your name's on the front on the cover, and you can just say, that is you. And
yeah, we stole him, Ryan.
Yeah. You can point to your father-in-law and say that is, that's you, that's me. You don't have to have any regrets about me marrying your daughter.
So, speaking of your wife, and this is very possibly the most important question that I will ever ask anyone. How did you talk her into letting you spend the money on the X-Men collection? And can you write me a book on how to do that? So, because that's like the most important. I mean, that's like knowledge every comic book collector that's married needs.
I can tell you the exact conversation that we had where we were talking about about my X-Men #1, and like the way I phrased it to like I knew as soon as I asked this question, the tide would turn in my favor, and it was at that moment that I was like, I should have been a politician or a lawyer, right? So the opportunity to buy this X-Men #1 had come up, and it was at the at the beginning of COVID, and everybody was getting the COVID checks. So I had gotten that check, and I said, "Here's this opportunity to buy this book. Should I do it?" And we went back and forth, and we talked about it. And finally, I said, the question that sealed the deal. This is the question that did it. I looked at her and I was like, "Would you do it if you were me?" And she's like, "No, I wouldn't do it. I'd never spend that kind of money on a comic book." I'm like, whoa. You're answering it as if you were doing it. I said, "Would you do it if you were me?" And then she just went. So that's how I did it.
I like that she never said yes. She just, it was just a sigh of defeat.
Yeah, and to be fair, in her defense, I had a majority of the X-Men collection before we even started dating.
Sure.
So that also helped.
Right, you weren't just starting, right? You weren't going, "Hey, honey, I want to get into this really expensive hobby."
Correct. Yeah. So we started dating, and then I was like, I did that thing that high school kids do, and I was not in high school. I'm just putting that out there. And I go, "Will you be my girlfriend?" And she was like, "Yeah, I'll be your girlfriend." And I'm like, "Great. By the way, I collect comics. You can't take it back now. You already said yes."
I'd rather not be you. That'd be a great response.
For those that don't know you, and Josh and I have been hanging out with you off and on Saturday nights on Two Brothers channel for a while now. I'm going to ask one simple question for those that don't know, and then you can tell them the answer that I already know. Out of the entire X-Men run from then till now, how many comics do you actually need to complete the run?
None. I have them all.
He owns them all, folks. Every single one of them. So when we say the X-Men collection, we mean the X-Men collection. It's massive.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. I got to figure out what to do with it. I mean, I'm not going to sell it. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not selling is not even an option. It's just finding more storage space for it.
Well, that actually brings me to a question, because I do wonder this: how wee little tiny Justin Birch, toddling off to kindergarten, whenever this occurred, what is your origin story? How did you get your start in being a nerd?
So it all goes back to that magical fall of 1992 when X-Men the Animated Series came on. So when that came on, it sort of blew my mind. I think I would have been in second grade at the time, I think. So I loved that show. I loved that there were all of these people on there that each had a different power set. And I thought that was the greatest thing ever. When I was in fourth grade, we went to, on Sundays, my dad liked to go to the flea markets a lot and set up and sell stuff. So I went with him one Sunday, and I remember I found someone selling a Thunder Tank, and I bought the Thunder Tank, and it was like $4. And I brought it back to the table. I think I'm like 10 or 12 or however old. And my dad was definitely that old school mentality where like, what are you doing? You're 10. You shouldn't be playing with toys. Right. So I was like, oh, okay. So
how does he feel now?
That's a great question.
I hate to break it to you, Dad, but look behind me.
So I took the Thunder Tank like back to the person. I was like, can I just get my money back? And they're like, oh yeah, sure, here you go. And then like 2 tables down was a guy just selling comics. And I was like, well, I've got $4. Let's buy this comic. And the first comic I bought was X-Men Adventures #1, which seems kind of dumb because a comic adaptation of the TV episode that I had already seen. I guess I wasn't thinking clearly on that.
First comic book I bought at the store was G.I. Joe, a comic book based on a cartoon. I mean, there's a long tradition of comics and cartoons being tied together, and the comics being awesome.
Yeah. So I would buy X-Men comics whenever I could convince a family member to take me to the comic book store, which wasn't very often. And then I did that thing that I think a lot of collectors do, is they get to like junior high and they realize that, at least I personally realized, that I liked girls more than comics. And I was like, wait a minute, girls don't like comics. Screw comics. And that's how it was until probably like, I don't know, sometime in college when I realized that I didn't care what other people thought about me. I mean, obviously you can tell by my physical appearance. So it was at that point that I had started buying and reading comics again, which was right about the time of Civil War in the comics, not the movie.
Right. That's interesting. That you like, okay, girls don't like comics, therefore I will put them aside. No more for me. Thank you very much. And then you realize that girls come and go, but comics are forever.
Yeah, that's how I should have said it.
Whoa, that's heavy, dude. And Nate's got another question. Nate's got all the good questions tonight. Best run in X-Men. Do you think it's Claremont? Who do you think had the best run? He's thinking hard. He's got to go through it all. Now, are you starting at the beginning and running through it, or are you just randomly picking on the first thing that jumped into your head as I associate this with awesomeness?
Can I pass?
No.
I don't want to pick one.
They're not going to hear you. It's okay. We have very few people who watch this show.
No. That's not what I want. It's like trying to pick between your favorite. Which one's your favorite kid, right?
I guess that makes sense.
I'm going to tell you what my favorite X-Men stories are. So I have such a fondness for that 90s Jim Lee run.
Heck yes.
Even though it was only 11 issues. That was the series that I wanted to collect first when I first started getting into comics, was that X-Men 91 series. So for me, I recently started going back and reading them, and they're not as great as I remember, but I still have a great fondness for them. So that's going to be my pick.
That was a very diplomatic answer. Maybe you should have been a politician.
He's in West Virginia. There aren't that many people. I'm sure that you could run for office and win.
It's possible.
Now,
I need to address this right quick. You do realize, Nate, what kids and pancakes have in common, right? The first one is always a throwaway. All right, proceed, since we're about to push Justin into political office.
Now, I like my oldest kid. I'm just putting that out there.
I love my oldest kid too, but you know.
Mayor Birch. I love it. Now, I have a question for you guys, because he often gets like overlooked or forgotten that he had a spectacular run on X-Men. But Mark Silvestri's run on X-Men was through the roof. That was awesome.
I'm secretly hoping that CGC will announce a Mark Silvestri like private signing, and then I can send in. It would be a toss-up between which book I would send in for him to sign. I can't remember the issue numbers off the top of my head. The one is Wolverine turning into a brood, kind of on his knees. And the other one would be Wolverine up on that X.
Oh yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah, so those are the two that I would have to sort of sit there and debate about which one I would send in for him to sign.
That's
so
legitimate.
when you got the final book to complete the X-Men run, did you have this moment where you were like, I've done it, I now own every single X-Men issue published, or was it kind of, all right, that's done, what's next?
No, he owns every single X-Men issue published until next week when 4 more come out.
Yeah, and then I'll pick those up.
So you're never completely done.
Honestly, I felt a little bit lost when I got the last issue, because I was just like, all right, this has been the goal for the longest time. Where do I go? What do I do now?
You had the Alexander the Great problem, right? He wept for he had no more worlds to conquer. He looked out, you're like, I already won. Now what do I do? Yeah,
but then it took me six months to figure out what I wanted to do next, and now I'm like all about it.
So what are you doing next?
I'm going to try and put together a full ASM run.
Ooh, I like that.
Now, when you say a full ASM run, are you looking at just strictly ASM? You're not looking at like Web of, Spectacular, any of the other stuff, correct?
Yeah, just ASM.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got everything from let's see here. After this past weekend, I think I have everything from 124 up, and then a bunch of stuff like under that's sort of just filled in here and there, but everything from 124 up, I've got.
Hey, you should get me a list, Ryan. I run into ASM books pretty frequently. It would help if I knew what I was looking for you. That is very interesting. Now, we touched on this right before the show, and then we got sidetracked really quick, and I feel compelled to address it again because I personally just want to know more about it. You said earlier the best thing to come out of West Virginia, besides yourself, and then you even poo-pooed that and said it wasn't you.
You added that part. I did.
But the best thing to come out of West Virginia is called a pepperoni roll.
Yes, 100%.
I need to know more about this because I need this in my life.
So, to me, there are two of the greatest things to ever come out of the state of West Virginia, and it's a toss-up between which one's one. It's like a 1A and a 1B situation, right?
Okay.
So, you have Jerry West, the NBA logo, Mr. Logo himself, and pepperoni rolls. What are pepperoni rolls? They're pepperoni rolls.
Hang on just a second. We have somebody who watches this on Fridays who owns a food truck.
Okay.
So, Amelia, I want you to pay particular attention to this next part.
So, pepperoni rolls are like West Virginia's food. Like if you think of like Philadelphia, you think of a cheesesteak. If you think of West Virginia, you should think of pepperoni rolls.
Basically, I would not normally associate West Virginia with anything with pepperoni. I would think of y'all as like chitlins or some Appalachian food, right?
Nope. Pepperoni rolls. So
I'm pleasantly surprised.
All a pepperoni roll is bread, like a roll. Like it's hard to describe, but just like a roll. You stuff pepperoni and cheese in there, you throw it in the oven, bake it, and then when it comes out, you can eat it hot, you can eat it cold, you can dip it in sauce, you eat it however you want.
Not like a roll. You mean like just the dough to make the roll, or the roll is already done and you just stuff this stuff in there? And
so you take the dough and then you stuff the cheese and the pepperoni in it, and then you bake it.
Oh, that sounds glorious.
So it got started in central West Virginia.
And it's baked, so it's healthy.
Yeah, there you go. It started in central West Virginia, which is where a large Italian population was. They had all immigrated from Italy. They were working in the coal mines, and they needed food to eat while they were down there. And they they figured that they couldn't take like sandwiches and stuff like that with the raw meat and cheese because it would go bad. So if they threw it in the bread and then baked it first, then they could go down there and they could eat it.
God, that sounds glorious.
Yeah, and just here are some wonderful pictures of pepperoni rolls, just from a Google image search. Oops.
Hang on, I'm embiggening you here so everybody can get the full scope of this.
Here we go. Just look at all those glorious pepperoni rolls.
That is actually, yes, the one top left was one I just saving a picture for because I was going to throw it up there, but since you did it.
Yeah, they...
Amelia, that sounds like a perfect food for the Zesto AF food truck. Just saying, that would go great with a dip dog, with a turtle burger, a pepperoni roll. You're on your way. That just sounds perfect.
The great thing about pepperoni rolls and around here, it's such a staple that so there are a few things in my life growing up that I didn't realize weren't everywhere. Pepperoni rolls is one of them. Cookie tables at weddings is another. I didn't realize. I thought that happened at every wedding.
Cookie tables at weddings? What is that?
So you don't know what a cookie table? You don't know what a cookie table is?
I'm inferring what it is, but no, I don't know what a cookie table is.
Okay, so a cookie table is basically when you get married. When I got married, all of my mom and all of my aunts all got together and spent a weekend doing nothing but baking cookies. Okay,
so they did not make a table out of cookies.
No, they did not make a table out of cookies. And
that would be pretty awesome too.
My wife's, my mother-in-law and all of her sisters and whatever, they all got together and spent a weekend baking cookies. So you get all of these cookies and you go to the reception and there's a table there and you just fill it with the cookies and that's it. Like you just, the guests come in and they get a plate full of cookies and they could take cookies home with them if they want to. It's wonderful.
So now I feel like every wedding that I have ever attended, those people cheated me out of an experience.
That's kind of what I'm thinking too.
So
they need to do it all over again to make up for their sins.
I found out that it's just sort of like a Pittsburgh area thing, which was really weird to me. I just thought it was everywhere. And then I went to a wedding in Minnesota and there was no cookie table. And my wife had to explain to me that cookie tables don't happen everywhere. And here I am, like a 32-year-old man crying because I wanted my cookies.
Right, you were cheated.
Mm-hmm.
So, in West Virginia, do they do like a bride's cake and a groom's cake? Because what I have learned is the groom's cake is a very southern thing in general, and not everywhere do they do a cake for the groom.
Around here, the groom's cake is done at the rehearsal dinner the night before.
Okay, see, not down here. Down here, you have the bride's cake, and then the groom's cake is chocolate. Now, in my case, the groom's cake was chocolate and peanut butter, and it was delicious. Thank you, Diana Tipton. That was Diane Tipton. That was spectacular. Really was. That was something else. Woo. But yeah, that's interesting. Now, also before we went live on the show, you said that there were several other letterers also from West Virginia. Was that right?
Yes, I like to make the joke that I'm the fourth best letterer from the state of West Virginia. Number one, there's no disputing it. Number one is obviously John Workman, who has lettered just about every book that Walt Simonson has ever written or drawn. He's got a very distinct style. We call it the Workman style.
So hang on. For one of the hallmarks of a Walt Simonson book is you have like the character in the front, Thor, for example, hammer aloft, lightning coming down, and it says, and then the background is nothing but a word like crack-a-ba-doo. Yeah. Does he do that, or does the letterer do that?
Normally the letterer would do that, but in this particular case, that may be something that Walt drew in himself.
Because he does that a lot. He uses the word as the background a lot, so it's this kind of really cool thing that I love. But I do wonder if that was him or the letterer.
It's normally traditionally it would be the letterer who did that, but like I said, in Walt's case, I could see that being something that he did himself.
Very cool. So, who are the other letterers there? Sorry, I jumped in on that. I just couldn't help it.
The number 2 would be Victoria Williams, who has done a ton of work with Archie comics. She lettered a ton of Sonic the Hedgehog books and really early Dark Horse Star Wars books. So she gets the number 2 spot. Number 3, number 3 is TBD. I'm sure there's someone else out there from West Virginia who letters comics. So they're number 3. And number 4 is myself.
Well, why can't you take the number 3 spot until you discover the other one?
Yeah, that seems like the only right thing to do.
I could, but then there's that potential that I would fall down to number 4. I'd rather start at number 4 and work up to number 3.
Interesting.
I can't argue with the logic. It took me a second, but I can't.
Well, there's an imaginary person in between you, though. Currently there is no person that exists, so you wouldn't be falling a spot. You would just discover a new species.
No, I'd be falling a spot. So I'd rather conquer them and take their spot.
Highly. Do you have ambitious goals to conquer other letterers and say, "Aha"?
I probably. Oh, I don't know. I guess it would just depend on how close attention the editor is paying.
I think you should give it a try. I miss thought balloons. I really do.
They're kind of annoying to make. So I'm caption boxes are so much quicker and easier. Like I prefer that just for efficiency's sake.
Who is he talking to?
He's talking to Tyler.
I'm so sorry, Tyler. It'd end up being a minor key, I bet. That's fair. That's fair. That's funny. So I feel like everybody's probably asking and wondering why in the world I haven't said anything about this before now, but you've got an awful lot of really cool looking things behind you. What in the heck is all that?
So everything behind me right now are 1/6 scale figures. So the majority of them are Hot Toys. I fell down that rabbit hole and I fell down it hard. I've slowed down since, which is for the best.
Yeah, it's a deep rabbit hole.
Yeah, so when I was thinking about how I wanted to approach collecting in 2022, I had this crazy thought that instead of splitting the collecting funds between toys and comics, what if I went 70-30 comics and sort of focus more on comics this year than I have in years past? And I will tell you that I'm really enjoying that. Collecting toys and action figures was becoming really stressful, and it wasn't as much fun for me. It felt like a chore. Like I had to keep up on all the information as sort of where pre-orders were coming from, when they were dropping, what exclusives were coming, all that good stuff.
You got a few slabs. I know at least one you got.
I
do have a few slabs. I do.
So if all those toys are so stressful, you could send me either one of those stormtroopers that's back behind your right shoulder on the bottom. I'll help alleviate some of that stress for you.
I really appreciate that.
I'm here for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm here for you.
I really like it when others have my best interests in mind. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
You know what? Since I like you so much, I'm going to waive my storage fee. Just send it on to me.
Oh, it's beautiful. Thank
What
you.
what a gem of a person Alan is.
Yeah,
Now,
I'm,
I
I'm
do have a question for you. You talk about the stress of it. Do you mean the stress of like making sure you get the new release or you get the thing? Because some of these things, Hasbro drops an announcement. They drop something and it's sold out within 23 seconds of them making the announcement. All that kind of jazz. Or are you talking about? I've got these things. I have to keep them in good condition. I have to store them somewhere because toys take a lot of more room up than comics. Or is it just a combination of all that?
It's a little bit of both. I personally was too spread out. I was collecting too many different toy lines, so I was doing, Marvel Legends, Star Wars Black, GI Joe Classified, Lightning Collection. Like, if Hasbro was making a 6-inch scale figure, there's a good chance that I was picking it up, and I was running out of space. And there would be store exclusives for figures that I would be busy and I would just forget to go to be on that store's website. It got to be stressful, and then I was running out of room to display stuff. So at some point I was just like, all right, I'm cutting everything except Legends, and Marvel Legends. I'm only buying comic figures. I'm not buying movie versions because they're fine, but it's not what sort of makes me happy. It doesn't bring me joy.
So you found you were getting some stuff just to get it rather than because it made you happy.
Yeah, I was approaching it unfortunately, I was approaching it as a completionist type mindset because that's who I am. That's what I do. And so the one that sort of broke me was the Eternals wave came out, and I was like, well, I gotta buy them because I gotta own all of the Marvel Legends. And I did, and I bought every single Eternals figure that came out, even though I didn't even see the movie. And it was at that point where I was like, all right, maybe I need to rethink the way that I'm doing this.
You had an intervention with yourself, is what it sounds like.
Yeah, I did.
Wait a minute. I just bought all of the Eternals toys. I was the one who bought all of the Eternals toys.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have them anymore. Like, I never opened them. So when I sold a bunch of stuff to a toy store, they were part of that first group that went.
So Nate brings up a good question. How do you feel about variant covers?
As some wise friends once told me, collect your way. So if
who would say something like that? That's ridiculous.
Well, it's evolved to your way is dumb, collect my way.
That sounds better. Yeah, that sounds more like it.
If you like variants, then who am I to tell you that's right or wrong? Collect the way that you want to collect.
I will tell you, as a retailer who has to order all that stuff, I despise variants.
And I totally get that.
I hate them because, like, unless people specifically order specific ones, which they don't normally, then what do I get? I mean, do I order all of these? Is somebody going to want them? Is somebody going to, like, are people going to come in because they had to have that one and I ordered this one? It's just a nightmare from the days when used to, if you ordered Thor number 375, you just ordered however many copies you needed because that was the book that came. As opposed to now, like, God love you if you're into any of the Dynamite books, like Red Sonja or Vampirella or something, they average 37 covers a month.
Now, a couple of years ago, you would go on Facebook, right? It would be posted on the Haven page. Hey, this is the cover of Batgirl. I believe Josh Williamson is doing this week. Is the variant? Who wants this? At least,
yeah. If it was a variant that I thought looked particularly cool, I would do that. But there's so many of them now, I don't have time to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it was nice when it was just a few here and there, but now everything's got an A and a B and a C and a D cover. It was the same thing when Action Comics 1000 come out. We had 10 different variant covers.
Well, Action 1000 and Detective 1027, all those had a generational cover.
Yeah.
Plus, so they had a decade cover, and then they had the blank cover, and then there was the main cover. So there were at least 10 covers for each one of those books.
Yep, and then I know people that were spec collecting on that, thinking that they were going to be worth so much money, and went out and bought every single one of them just to realize they're worth cover price.
I wish they had bought them from me. I still have a few of those laying around. Those new DC swimsuit covers, the one with Batman and Catwoman, where Batman's standing on a beach in a pair of swim trunks and a cowl,
Is amazing.
it's like, why is what? What?
Did you send that off to CG?
Heck no, I didn't send that to the CGC.
So when I was in last Friday, I saw it in the box, and I looked at Tom Price. I was like, what in the hell is that? And he was like, and we pulled it up and we started looking at it. I was like, tell Josh that this needs to be sent to CGC immediately.
That's not what he told me. He told me you wanted it.
Oh, well, yeah, I'll take it. I'll send it to CGC.
Why?
Why not?
Because it costs money.
Well, you know what? Honestly, I think there needs to be some type of deal worked with CGC. Like, they need to start dominoes in this thing. 30 minutes or less, you get your money back.
I'm going to tell you, my Fantastic Four number 10, the third appearance of Dr. Doom, they have had since July 12th last year. It's been 13 months.
Okay, I won't complain then, because I know we got a couple that I sent in back in like January that we still haven't got back yet.
Yeah. I mean, they've got books that I sent in last August too. So I mean, anything that's not modern is taking forever. How do you feel about that, Justin?
I just fast tracked to 2 non-modern books, so I'll get them before the end of the year.
What books did you send in?
I sent in a Journey into Mystery 109. So it's a early Magneto appearance outside of X-Men.
Yep.
And I sent in an ASM 101.
Very nice.
I've
got a Journey into Mystery 111 coming in next week at some point. I just picked it up. I like getting those early pre-Thor books before the title changed. I always like to pick those up. People want you to show off your X-Men 9.8.
Which one? I have 5 of them. I have 5 of them. So,
did you get each one of the covers?
Yes.
That's fair.
I did.
Nothing wrong with that. Although, how you show off that gatefold cover inside a slab is a mystery.
You're right. I'll have to buy another one so that I can just do a front and back.
You have to get a hinged slab.
Yeah, there we go.
Or you could just crack the slab live on YouTube right now and show us.
There's a bunch of stuff off screen that's blocking where the books are at. So unfortunately, I can't get to it that easily or quickly. So otherwise, I would totally be down for doing that.
Yeah, maybe next time.
Now, I think you're probably going to have a hard time answering this because you had a hard time answering some questions earlier. But if your house were to catch fire, you could only save one comic. What would you save?
So full disclosure, first thing I'm grabbing, assuming that all of my kids and dog are off, right?
Yeah, they're all okay. They were all off at band camp or something.
I'm actually grabbing my hard drives first that have all of those pages of work on them, because if they were destroyed, those are the things that would probably destroy me if it was,
Chris, how you doing, man?
If I could only grab one book, it would be my Edge of Spider-Verse number 2.
Interesting. I would not have thought that. Why that one?
Because, well, it's a 9.8, so I got that going for me.
That is handy.
My oldest kid is actually named Gwen. So I feel like that book means the most to me because of that. So that's the one I would grab. I do have an X-Men Adventures 1 in a 9.8.
Oh, wow.
So now, same question, except apply it to the hot toys. You can only grab one hot toy. Which one is it?
I'm grabbing. You can barely see it. It's right about. Oh wait, maybe. I was gonna say the Mandalorian, Mando over there, but I might grab Spider-Punk. It might be Spider-Punk.
That's fair.
It'd be hard. I have two hands.
Well,
I could carry
Nick
both.
called it. He said Spider-Punk.
Yeah, man, Spider-Punk is awesome.
I had somebody tell me the other day that they're pretty confident Spider-Punk is coming to the next Spider-Verse movie, and to grab those copies of Spider-Punk now. The first appearance of Spider-Punk.
Maybe I should. I have one. I bought it off the shelf. I don't know if it's a 9.8. I'd really like to have a 9.8. Maybe I should just buy a 9.8.
Well, Dustin tells me he can turn anything into a 9.8.
I mean, he did press my books.
There you go. So there you go. He can whip those puppies into 9.8 shape or 9.2.
Yeah. Hey, if he was able to take that ASM 101 and turn it into a 9.2, I'd buy him a Coke.
What grade do you think it's going to come back?
What? I think when I bought it, it was a. Sorry, I'm not prepared for this question. When I originally bought it, I bought it at Heroes Con. It was a 4.5 in a CBCS case, and it had not been pressed. So I think anything above a 4.5 is a victory.
I would agree with that. I tell you, I bought a raw copy of Werewolf by Night 32 at the expo, and I bought it from a guy I knew and I trusted. So and it was crazy busy, so I didn't have a lot of time to really look at it. But I got a message from Jay Thornton, who was cleaning and pressing it for me. He's like, "It looks really good from the front."
Oh,
but the staples are rusted out, and there's no paper left for him to grab onto much. And a couple of pages are kind of detached a bit. And I'm like, man, I thought I was going to come out on that pretty good, and now I think I'm going to lose money.
It's always a terrible feeling.
So the condition that it's in now, if you don't have it graded, what would it sell for versus if you have it graded with the condition that it's in now?
Well, if I tried to cover up the condition that it's in now, I could sell it for a pretty good chunk of change. But if I get it graded and it comes back a 2.0, which at this point seems likely, although looking at the cover, it looks like a 7. Anything above a 2, I'll be like break even and I'll be okay. If it comes back a 2.0 or so, I'm just going to be ticked off. Fury! That's good stuff. That's good stuff.
All right, so Justin, are you working on anything now that you can tell us about?
That's what I was about to say. What projects can you tell us about that you've got in the hopper so we can get our people to go out and buy them?
And, we don't have a lot of people watching, so you can even tell us the stuff that you had to sign an NDA on.
Yeah, don't tell us what you're working on that you can't tell us. Just tell us what you had to sign an NDA on.
Yeah.
What's an NDA?
Non-disclosure agreement?
Oh. So
in that case, don't worry about it. You can tell us whatever you want.
Yep.
I had to look at my my planner to see what I had worked on this week. I've got my first Dark Horse book coming out pretty soon.
Rock on!
yeah, so I'm pretty excited about that.
Can you tell us which one?
Yeah, it's called Deadmaul.
Oh, dude, yeah, we just had to turn in orders for that.
Yeah, so that's I'm gonna be lettering that. That's my first Dark Horse credit. The cool thing about it is that the artist, David Stoll, I've worked with him before on Pantomime from Mad Cave, and we actually worked together on a Webtoons series called Metaphorical Her, maybe like I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. So I see it. The cool thing about comics is like once you start working with one artist, you run into them again somewhere down the road.
That is awesome. So out of all the companies, who have you? It might be shorter to do a list of who have you not worked for. But where all do you have credits, or where do you not have credits? Whichever way is the quickest way to tell people that.
So I don't have a Marvel credit. I don't have an Image credit. Who are some of the other bigger publishers?
But you do have for DC?
Yeah, I have a DC credit. I have.
What you work on for DC?
I worked on. Do you remember those like 100-page giants that were at Walmart? I did a story, the Birds of Prey issue.
Okay.
So I do have a DC credit. I have Boom, IDW, Scout. I think I'm gonna have one with Behemoth pretty soon.
Nice.
IDW, Boom, Scout, Mad Cave, Source Point Press. I'm sure there are tons of others that I'm forgetting. I have a Dynamite credit.
What'd you work on for Dynamite?
There was a video game company that put out a comic to promote their video game called Obey Me. And
I remember that.
Yeah, I lettered Obey Me.
Okay. That was not an adaptation of 50 Shades of Grey.
It was not.
No.
Yeah,
that's probably why it didn't sell so well.
The comic was probably better than 50 Shades of Grey.
I'm quite certain of that.
So you said you got a Webtoons to your credit. What do you think about working on Webtoons? What's your thoughts on that platform?
It from a technical perspective, it's different. Like I'm used to having the mindset of when I work, I have to make sure that the reader's eyes go from left to right, top to bottom. And with Webtoons, you just have to make sure they go from top to bottom. You have to keep in mind that people aren't reading it normally like they would a comic. They're reading it on their phone and scrolling up with their thumb. So once I got that mindset, I was able to sort of figure it out.
Okay, so do you read a lot of Webtoons?
No, I don't. I truthfully, this is being 100% honest with you. A majority of my reading is done. It is done digitally on my iPad, but I read a lot of manga. So,
well, so that's what I was going to ask. So like I only read a couple of manga titles, and there are a few Webtoon titles that I read, and you'll have some people say that Webtoons is not manga, and manga they don't go together at all. But when you look at the art style, they are kind of similar, very similar in the art style and in the storytelling.
I could see how people would make that parallel between the two. I've never thought about it that way, but now that you're talking about it, it does sort of make sense.
So like Doombreaker. I've been reading Doombreaker on Webtoons. That and Advanced Player of the Tutorial Tower. Those are two phenomenal titles that would make a great manga. They would even make amazing anime. So, but what do you think about? I think Nate actually put it up there. How nerve-wracking would it be to letter a manga book?
So, with manga, what they do is once you get you'll get the pages from Japan, and it'll still have the what is the word for Japanese the alphabet, like their letters? What's it called?
You were asking a redneck that question?
I can't remember what that word is. So basically, it's got the Japanese characters there with the balloon in it, and you have to first erase all of the Japanese letters and then put in the English. So it's a different it's a different beast in itself. Thank you.
That's fair. So that's.
What did you think was more demanding, the editing for Webtoons, editing manga, or editing comic books? I'm sorry, lettering.
Webtoons was difficult at first just because I couldn't wrap my mind around how to do it. So it was sort of a challenge in that I wasn't used to the idea of someone is going to read this just by flicking their thumb, right? I still want to go left to right, not up to down. So that was challenging at first. Once I figured it out, I was fine with it. You know, comics in general are a bit challenging when it's a overly wordy comic and you don't have a lot of space to fit stuff in there.
I believe that. Chris, I have not seen Nope, but all I've heard from anyone is that it's amazing and that I need to see it. But then I also have still not seen Thor, and I have not seen Top Gun. I haven't seen anything at the theater in forever, and I need to correct that. Makes me sad. I'm pitiful now.
Don't worry, I'm the same way. I very rarely go to the movie theater.
Well, before we sign off and let everybody go and do their thing, is there anything you want to tell folks about that they need to keep an eye out for? That it's something you're really enjoying, something that you're working on, any of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I'll plug my social media stuff first. If you want to follow me on Twitter, you can follow me at Justin Birch. If you want to follow me on Instagram, it's Justin_Birch_letters. I'll let you know right now. I sort of treat Instagram sort of like the collection part of me, so that's where you'll get a lot more pictures of the comics I collect or my action figures or stuff like that. And Twitter is definitely where I promote more of the books that I'm working on. So I do sort of keep them separate as much as I can. The two books that I'm gonna plug. The first one is just definitely going to be Deadmaul from Dark Horse. Just go and pick that up because I would really love to get more Dark Horse credits. So that's just me being selfish. The book
also, the premise looks pretty cool.
the book that I think that you should check out just because it was one of the most fun books that I've ever worked on. It's a book that I think it came out from Comics Tribe, and it's called Toddler Apocalypse. And the premise of the story is that the worst thing about surviving an apocalypse isn't the apocalypse itself, it's the fact that you are stuck with your kids.
That sounds like a book that Alan would love.
Well,
my kids would be mortified if they were stuck with me.
So it's a collection of I believe it's 6 or 7 different stories. Each story is 6 to 8 pages. Different artists for each story, but the same writing team for each one, and I lettered every story. It's definitely I read the first the writers approached me to letter it. They told me what the premise was. Once I read the first story, I was like, yes, I'm on board. I want to be a part of this.
All right, one final question before we let everybody go, because I just thought of this and you're the perfect person to ask. Are you going to do the thing that Hasbro has now where you can have yourself made into a G.I. Joe figure or a Power Rangers figure or whatever into your own custom figure? Are you going to do that with your face on an action figure?
I was trying to think of the most ridiculous figure I could put my face on, just as sort of as a joke. And the only thing I could come up with was, and I don't even know if you could do this.
Because they don't have the rights to the Muppets?
Oh, that would be awesome. But no, it wouldn't be a Muppet. I I will I want to see my face on a Mr. Sinister body just so I could have the cape.
What about your face on a Dr. Mindbender body?
That was what I was going to say. Go Dr. Mindbender, you get a monocle and the cape.
Yep.
And suspenders with no shirt. What kind of a dentist is this guy?
Maybe I could do that, but I'd rather have a cape.
Well, he gets a cape. He has a cape.
Yeah, but Mr.
And a monocle.
Sinister's capes are always just more fabulous.
Okay, I can't argue that. If you want a cape, why don't you get a Spawn cape? Goes on forever. Just.
I guess I could put my head on a Spawn body. I guess that would work too.
Well, I guess if they make it so the heads are removable, like a lot of them are now, you could just put your head on about anything.
That's true.
You could put your head on a Lady J action figure. I bet that'd be great.
Sure.
I mean, Lady J, Lady Justin, it works.
Yeah.
That's what the J stands for.
Yeah.
We just didn't know until just now. Oh, man. Well, yeah, everybody definitely order Deadmaul. We just had to, I think that's on the sign-up sheet for this month from Dark Horse, and it's a pretty cool-looking comic. Justin's working on it. You know somebody who's doing the work, so support him. He wants more credits at Dark Horse, and so the better the book sells, the more likely that is to happen. So, yeah, everybody put Deadmaul on your sub list. Let me know how many copies you want. I'll be sure to order those for you. That's what we call a win-win, Justin. Don't tell anybody.
Well, hey, go ahead and put me down for a copy.
You got it. But thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Y'all are awesome, as always. Because I can't help it, we're not a quiz show anymore. We don't ask a bunch of questions, but this is still my favorite video. So I want to play this one before we sign off. And thank you, Justin. Awesome having you on. Thanks, man.
Thanks for having me. A big thank you to my wife who is wrangling the kids right now so I could do it. So
she's a saint. I'll just tell you, I've never met her, but I think she's an absolute saint.
100%. No, not
all right. Well, thank you.
That at all.
All right, here we go.